Hi, and welcome to week 2. Good job in the first week. This is my classroom. I thought I'd film here from my classroom where I teach. Back here is my library of books. I've been collecting books since I started teaching, and I now have around 200 books that I check out to students to try to foster a love of reading. In the first week, you guys did a very good job of selecting that piece of content that you're going to be focusing on for the rest of this month. And in terms of lesson planning, you really should think of your unit in thirds. And this week we're going to be dealing with the first third, which is everything you do before you get to the content. The pre-reading lesson, it's sometimes called. Then we're going to get to, in the next week, the second third, which is actually dealing with the content itself and how you're going to teach this new information and how you're going to run the classroom and activities and everything you're going to do to teach that information and assess and check for understanding and all those things. And then in the last week, we're going to look at the final third, which is the post-reading lesson, which means they've already learned the new information, but now we want to go to critical thinking. We want to push them to compare and contrast to what they've already learned. We want them to evaluate what they learned and make judgments. And maybe we want them to synthesize something new based off of what they learned. And so in some of the classes in the credential program, you think of lesson planning in terms of class period. But what you'll find when you get in the classroom is it doesn't always really work that way. So we're really designing a unit right now, and that it should be a multi-week unit and so forth. So this week right now we're in is all about the pre-reading, and we're going to deal with vocabulary, and then you have a pre-reading paper. For the vocabulary, you need to create 2 student-ready vocabulary assignments. I personally am I'm not a worksheet teacher, but for the purpose of this assignment, I really do need you to create 2 student-ready worksheets, for lack of a better word, that have directions. Even if it's an activity, you could do it as half sheets. They would give directions on what they're going to do for their vocabulary assignment. The key to vocabulary is that it's about repetition, and it's about helping students build connections between their prior knowledge and these new words. In order to do that, students need to build context. They need to write synonym lists, antonym lists. They need to draw pictures of the words. There's research that shows that when kids draw pictures of a word, it creates a brain web in the brain, much like a memory, where they connect that image to the word itself, and it increases the memory of the vocabulary. So it's also very important to communicate that to your students so that they understand the metacognition of this, and that it isn't just breaking out the Crayolas for a little coloring time, but that it actually does work and will boost their memory of the vocabulary words. So drawing pictures is good. Anything you can to help build real meaning with the words. When we were in school, it was how it was when I was in school. We got the words on Monday, we took a test on Friday. And it doesn't work. Studies have shown it doesn't work. I did it when I first got into teaching, and I saw firsthand that the kids memorized them for the test, but 2 weeks later, if I pulled out the words, nobody knew the definitions. And so that method just flat out doesn't work. And so you really have to get a way to get them to build understanding and meaning around these words. Explicitly teaching them is a great way to do it, and then giving them some sort of activity that they can build on from there. So 2 assignments, student ready, and rationale. That's that one paper. And then the second paper is your pre-reading paper, your prior knowledge paper. And you'll need to write about everything that your students are going to need to know to be successful on your unit, what they need to bring to the table, the necessary prior knowledge. You also need to write about how you're going to pre-assess them. How are you going to find out their level of prior knowledge? And then, third, how are you going to address the gaps in prior knowledge? How are you going to fill in those gaps before you get started? We know that prior knowledge is the #1 predictor of student success on a given unit, and kids with higher level of prior knowledge will do better on the unit. It's one of the reasons our EL kids struggle, is because they're missing that prior knowledge piece more than anything else. And so you obviously can't just devote weeks and weeks to teaching all this prior knowledge, but in the Common Core it really asks kids in writing standard number 8 to research. And so oftentimes you can turn this prior knowledge, what would have been a lecture, into a student discovery, where you put them on computers in small groups or on their own, and they actually go and look up the information and fill in the prior knowledge gaps themselves. And I think you'll find that it actually works a lot better that way, oftentimes. So those are your 2 papers for this week. If you have any questions, please email me, and I'll get right back to you as soon as I can. And I look forward to reading your papers. Thank you.